Be here. I'm so blessed to have my wonderful co-host today. We've got Leslie Flowers. We've got Catherine Chadwick. Catherine's been about 2 weeks, so we all missed her quite a bit. The word of the day is reinvention. Chat is open. And we depend and value your comments and thoughts and whatever you want to add so that we can be more relevant, direct our ideas towards where we can do the most good, and give you some wonderful takeaways that you can actually apply and see the value immediately. So, with that said, Leslie, say hello and reinvention is the word. What is the thoughts that are coming through your mind?
Oh my goodness! If we had gone live 5 minutes earlier,
Oh, we would have
God,
been ready for tomorrow.
that's right. That's right. So, I was thinking, about reinvention a little bit, and I wondered if we don't do that every day, that we're either growing or disintegrating in conscious awareness. Our body actually is disintegrating. I guess I don't know at what point, as we grow from infancy, that we actually turn the corner? Is there a place, an age when we start disintegrating, or is it a constant process of growing and expanding, slipping back a little bit, growing and expanding, so that the opportunity to have a tabula rasa, which is a fresh start any day you want, is pretty inspiring to me. It means that I can actually let go of everything that I said before 9 o'clock
Mhm.
and start brand new, clean slate. And you know what? That's very freeing to me. So that's what I think about reinvention right now at 9:03.
Okay, good
Thank you.
start, Leslie.
Thank you.
Now we'll move to Catherine. Catherine, you've had the benefit of Leslie's cathartic experience prior to the show, and now her wonderful insights. First, initial thoughts. She had to go first on
Hey, Natalie. Hey, Natalie. She's our only girl. So our only person so far. So, hey,
Well,
Natalie.
nobody knows that, Leslie.
Oh,
When,
sorry.
when you put somebody out there for the first time, it's like a tip jar, right? Where they put $1 or $5. So, anyways, Leslie is now 904.30. So back to Catherine.
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
Well, I think we do reinvent ourselves every day, at probably every second, because on a cellular level, cells are being replaced, right? And we do have that opportunity to make the day whatever we choose to make the day. And we can't control all of the circumstances, obviously, but we can control what we do. And if we're not really too excited about the way the day's going, it's just like, what can I do to turn this around a little bit and move in a little bit different direction? And, I love that old, ocean liner analogy. If you change just 1 degree, you're going to end up in a different place. Right. And so I think that that's a beautiful way to look at reinvention. It doesn't have to be something dramatic all the time. It can be just one little change, one little change, one little change, and they all add up.
Well, I think that's so to the point. And what I would like to add is when you look at the word before you think of the word, right? Re means to do something again, right? And invent means to make change, right? Or to work on change. So really, it's learning. Reinvention is what did I learn today that I'm going to add tomorrow? And you reinvent so many things like recipes. You're always constantly reinventing those. Well, I'm going to add more cinnamon. I'm going to do this. If you look at your life as small things that together is a big thing, then if you work on the reinvention of the little things, well, how can I walk a little further today? Just little things that you say, yeah, I can stretch a little for another minute. I can do this for 20 seconds. And it also makes you in the moment.
Yeah.
Because now you're looking, now you're aware. You say, hey, the brownies are good, but I know if I did this, right, then I know, and if nothing else, it's a reinvention. You can always go back to the old invention. That's the key thing. You did a recipe this way, change it, didn't work. You go back to what you had. You'll learn not to do something. Kelly's here. I could spend a whole show just talking about what Shelley does to support us and to support so many others, especially with her awesome journey with Christy and all of the wonderful people that are getting support and help through these types of, authentic live streams, not the rah rah, happy everybody, and no one knows what they just did or learned for the last hour. We're continuously in the process of reinvention. And you should be, because I think to Leslie's point, when you stop, you disintegrate, right? When you decide to hit the stop button, that's where I'm going to be. That's okay for you, but the world doesn't know that. And it's going to keep changing. So even if you were aligned, you're going to be out of alignment. And then, who doesn't fall in love with improvement or with change? To waking up and say, today is the day I'm going to do something or learn something or be with someone. So anyways, that's my thoughts on reinvention. Getting back to Leslie, what can you add to the reinvention conversation?
Well, if you give me an hour. Actually, I wanted to actually address something that Catherine said that I think is a really fine point. It reminded me that we actually have the power of choice to think differently. It boils down to that. If I'm going to do something new, then I'm going to think something different first. Like, oh, I feel like crap today. What can I do? Well, I can choose the day exactly as it is and exactly as it is not. Now, what that does for me is reminds me that resistance causes persistence. So if I continue to resist a good day, I'm going to be stuck in a bad day. If I choose to make it a new or different day, then that's going to be positive, and I'll be moving in the growing, right? The growing part. This is the law of vibration, which says that everything is either growing or disintegrating, right? At any one time. So the building you're in right now, let's hope that it's disintegrating very slowly. Right. And we're disintegrating. We're each disintegrating. So it's really about choosing a different way to think, and that will ignite reinvention of your thoughts. And reinvention, is redoing, and invention for me is creating. So it's a recreation of who I am being, as Don says, in the moment. And I got to direct my day, which was something quite different before I began to focus on it. That's
Great insight, Leslie. Moving back to Catherine.
Thank you.
To get Catherine's viewpoint on reinvention.
You got two smart ladies here, and you're a sandwich.
Well, yeah. They say never be the smartest person in the room. So, Catherine,
That's really
laughing, that's enough to help people reinvent.
Stop laughing.
Right. So Leslie, when we come back to you again, I want you to talk about what kind of sandwich we're in, right? Now, isn't that so fun?
Yes.
And so, but what's so fabulous about what you're talking about? It makes me think of the emotional energetic scale, and when you look at that visually, and sometimes we need a pattern interrupt to move us in a different direction, because sometimes it's just easy to get stuck and going around and around and around down that rabbit hole, or on that merry-go-round that isn't going anywhere other than around and around and around. And okay, so we need something different here. And so a pattern interrupt, gosh, that can be a different thought. It can be a change of physicality, which I believe is a beautiful tool to use. And I like to work with people on that emotional energetic scale, because I think that if people think of themselves as being energy and having a visual, it really is a beautiful way to support, like, oh my gosh, all right, I'm kind of stuck here. What's the next best thought, or what's the next best step to move me up the scale a little bit? And I think when we use tools that we can actually visualize, things that we can actually conceptualize, is a beautiful way to live, I believe.
Yeah, and I think to blend both of your thoughts, reinvention can be thought reinvention. It can be thing reinvention, what you do with stuff. And it could be people reinvention, which is who you hang around with and what do you do. To Leslie's earlier point, if you have a choice every day, right, to decide to be productive or be lazy or be just hurt yourself if you want, right? I mean, you got three choices, and I'm saying if they were laid out in buttons every morning when you woke up, which button would you choose? And the natural button would be, I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to have better. And people choose the other buttons. So there had to be so much going on to make them not do the logical or natural choice. And because it is a choice, one has to say, why did I choose to be that way today? Why did I wear that outfit? Right? And all of a sudden I had angry people, and I got angry and I got disappointed. And it's natural when life doesn't move in the direction and at the pace you want it to. So a lot of times you're dealing with frustration. I'm waiting for something. I don't like waiting. I don't need to wait. But then how do you balance that with the now? Because whatever you plan for the day, you're way ahead of yourself anyways. Until the day starts unfolding and you start dealing with it, do you know what do you got time for? Who do you got time for? What do you need to do? And that's where I think too many people move faster as things go faster when they should be moving slower, right? Taking their time, right? When you're driving a car that's moving too fast, the first thing you do, let up on the accelerator. You don't deal with it, you eliminate it. So I think that if people are really driven towards achievement, they can't allow those things to happen in their mindset. There's no space, no benefit to bringing it along, right? I mean, if you took a road trip, would you just take two people off the street and say, we'll get to know each other? No. So anyways, Natalie has a very long comment. Thank you, Natalie, for putting the time and thought in. Yes, I agree with you both. We have the power to reinvent every moment. When we let misaligned thoughts dictate our day, it's essential to pause and reevaluate. Every thought can steer us towards growth or pull us into stagnation. Recognize this weight. Let me see.
And consciously choose positivity. If you ever drift, remember that you hold the power to shape your life's narrative with each thought you embrace. I like the idea of pattern interrupt, and that's what I'd like to address.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, which is exactly what Catherine was mentioning about triggering ourselves, or not triggering. Well, yeah, reminding ourselves that we actually have a choice. But one thing I do want to say is that all of this is assuming that people think. People don't think. Here's a quote that I heard that I absolutely love. And when you think about it, it really is true. Most people are operating automatically, reacting, not thinking at all. So 2% of people actually think. 3% of people think that they think. And 95% of people would rather die than think. So, yes, all these things are good. And, in order to remind ourselves, we have to be aware, which means we have to be thinking. And I wanted to point, though, to the change in physicality that you brought up. Oh, there's Paul. Hi, Paul.
And
Yeah, I was up at 3 a.m. and I looked on LinkedIn, and there was Paul, who's supposed to be resting, right, as part of his regimen, and a whole bunch of crazy people in the middle of the night. It's called Insomniac's Hour or something. Anyway, there were only two in the audience, and when I came in, and he said, "Oh my God, okay, that's your hurry up sign. What do you think you're in the movies?" Okay.
I'm a pedal wheel.
I got it. Okay. So anyway, when we used to be able to smoke at work, remember that?
Yeah.
So I was the kind of person that I could smoke a half a pack a day. And then if I got it in my mind that I was done with that, I just put it down. So I have to say that I'm a unique person in that respect. But the way that I quit smoking was when I changed jobs, because it was a completely different environment and I was there all day. So I was in one job where you could smoke and everybody had ashtrays and there was ashes everywhere and smoke, right? I mean, it was amazing. And if you didn't smoke, you never said a word because we were in the majority. But just sometimes I would get sick of it. So when I changed jobs, I actually thought, I'm not going to smoke here.
Mm-hmm.
But now smoking didn't mean that much to me, right? I mean, it really didn't. I enjoyed it and started, when I was younger, when we would go to bars and drink, that's when I would start with a cigarette. Anyway, the kind of sandwich that we have here is a sage sandwich, right? The herbs are in the middle. The meat and protein and the real guts are on the outside. So it's kind of a thin sandwich with really big bread on either side and then just a few wisps of sage in the middle. So what do you think, Catherine?
It's always just so good to laugh and think what that does for you. Right?
Absolutely. Even Donna's smiling.
Right. And so, what's really wonderful about that is that when you laugh, your vibration, automatically goes up and you just think of different things. And what comes to mind is when we are reinventing, because we always are, for those of us that acknowledge that, and other people are also reinventing, but they're not really aware of it, right? And they may not be going in the direction that they choose to go in because people do what they know. And as back to your point, many people are running on automatic and they don't understand. They don't have the self-awareness that is required to actually move forward and actually do a reinvention, right? And because it's a constant process. And I do like what you were talking about in regard to physicality and environment, because we do have choices as to where we work. Sometimes those choices don't come as quickly as we, anticipate or would really like to, but we do have the power to make those changes or change our perception and our perspective, which automatically changes our environment. Right. So we do have the choice both ways to do that. I do have a funny smoking story. I smoked the most when I'm a nurse by profession. And my first job out of college.
Around the patients. That's when you smoked the most, was around the patients, right?
It was in ICU. Okay. So out there in front, there was a big alleyway to bring in, all the equipment and stretchers and all of that. And the patients are over there. And so up here are all the monitors, and this is actually before computers, right? So, but we do have monitors, and behind me is the medicine room, and there are two doorways there, and we could stand in the doorway, see the monitors, see the patients, and while we're mixing up stuff, doing things in the med room, we could smoke. And so, and we all did, and it's just like, what? And it wasn't until actually I left that environment and I thought, oh my gosh, how is that even possible with all of that oxygen running out there? You know? So, but what an exhibit of the times, right?
Mhm.
Of that era. You know,
Yeah.
smoking was just the thing.
Well,
And
you
I'm
go,
so delighted that I don't smoke anymore. I haven't
Me
smoked
too.
in a very long time, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what a great thing to be done with.
And you didn't even know that you smelled like old tobacco, right? But now, when anybody who walks by who's a smoker, it's like, oh, well, my God, that was me.
well, it was worse then because, you know, everybody was impacted by Madison Avenue back then, you
Mm,
know, with
Oh,
Mark.
madman. Oh,
Well,
madman.
well, because you could say and do so many things and there was no real control over it. I mean, you had doctors smoking on their commercials telling you how it was good for your heart, it would speed it up, or how it was good for the menthol was good for your throat. And, I mean, and it happened, you know, and then you always found like the Salem commercial, the two lovers meeting in the middle of the grasses. I mean, everything. I mean, just like alcohol commercials today too, glamorize the
yeah.
fun, the joy, whatever. But you know, looking back, even in college, every chair had a little aluminum foil like ashtray,
Right.
and,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
and
the airplanes, some of the older ones still have that little ashtray, that little crappy
well,
little.
I was on flights where they had to stop smoking because they couldn't keep up with the filters were getting clogged, and you know, and there was, anyways, we're going off into one day we'll make word of the day cigarettes. But what it does show is people don't always have an objective choice with reinvention because of the influences that encourage or discourage certain things, just like today with all of the media, right? Certain people are listening to stuff without knowledge of, is it true, with AI that's coming across, you know? So are you reinventing yourself with nourishing things? Because if everybody would have known what we know now about cigarettes back then, we wouldn't have smoked. I mean, and if someone would have said this is, you know, I can't imagine, we're getting back to it.
Well, we would have, because that was the no-no. So, right. So now we have new no-nos. We have drugs and we have all of that. And cigarettes, in a way, like alcohol, right, I think are not so, the people that use them and how we use them may not be so different today than it was back then, but those were our choices to rebel,
Yeah,
right?
but I think to that point, there was a lot of social, maybe not pressure, but
Yeah.
influence, right?
Yeah.
So if all your friends are smoking, then hey, you're going to smoke. If all your friends are saying, hey, you can't be smoking at the dinner table when you come visit, you're not going to smoke as much. So
Correct.
I think people want to do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is not taking their own initiative, it's following somebody else's, or you know, being a follower instead of a leader.
And that's the lower levels of awareness. These are people that haven't yet awakened. And I always say yet, because what I know for sure is that you will, even if it's on your deathbed, you're going to get it all. And so we awaken, right, through shows like this, through discussing, how do you and one of the things you said we would do at the beginning of the show, Donald, was to give tips, right? So, when I'm in the audience, I'm thinking, well, how do I do that? So the first thing was, Catherine saying, well, you could change your environment. So if you wanted to, right? And I said you could actually choose, right, to reinvent yourself. You don't have to know what it is. It's thinking differently than the way you were just a minute ago. So, I really I want to give all those people who aren't aware yet, who are still in confusion, who don't know what we're talking about. And let me tell you, I know because I was there.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, we all have been there.
Oh,
And to say that you will be patient, you will reach a moment of aspiration when you say, I want to be, do, or have more than I have, right? I want something. Is this all there is? I really want something else. And that begins, right, for me anyway, this curiosity, this exploration, this dabbling, dipping your toe into conscious awareness. So I always put in yet, because I want to leave the space for everybody to awaken at their own time and be okay with where they are right now. Just to be listening and processing. Elizabeth Falloon is really good at this. I've noticed this about her. And Paul also is here, and I don't know if Paul heard the 2% or not, but he loves that quote. So wherever you are is perfect, right? And doing it your way is fine, as long as you consider listening to what other people share. And if you can do that, then that ignition, right, Catherine, to get curious to what the hell are these people talking about?
Well, Catherine, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think when people understand the basics, and we don't have to know all the complicated, intertwining of everything,
Right.
but just some of the basics as to how we operate, then I think that that's a huge advantage. And, I know I've mentioned this research before, but the research does show that we think between 18,000 and 70,000 thoughts in a day. And they're in agreement that about 90% are the same as the day before and the day before and the day before and the day before and last year and how long, right? It's and quite often, and that's where you get curious. The curiosity is such an advantage to get curious about, all right, what are my beliefs? What am I operating on? Because there are many beliefs that people just accept without any evaluation because people do what they know. And that goes down from generation to generation to generation to generation. And that's why I think it's such a wonderful thing to be able to understand some of the basics. And that's why I keep talking about what I refer to as the ultimate mind diet, because what we choose to think really dictates, that runs the show. And understanding also that the research shows that the lifespan of an emotion is 90 seconds or less.
And how we perpetuate it.
Right. And we don't have to. And that's a choice, right? And so when people actually understand these things, it's just like, wow, okay, I don't have to be down in the dumps for months and months and months. Okay. And it's important to acknowledge that and learn from it. And I also believe it's important to use that information to keep moving forward with, right? And the present moment is just full of information, because when you think about it, when you're in the present moment and you can work on mindfulness practices and being present with yourself, because it all starts with us. And so if we don't really love ourselves, it's really not that easy to love anybody else.
So true. And so worthwhile to really listen and apply, what Leslie's saying, what Catherine's saying, getting to the RE side of the reinvention. There's a saying that repetition makes reputation. And the more you reinvent yourself, the more you put one block on another over time. And I think every word we come up with, every thought or idea is all based on perspective. What's your time frame? I didn't win today. Well, who does in one day? I'm not as good as everybody else. Well, you just started. You have to have a foundation that you actually built on or are trying to build on. And like buildings take time, people invest in them. They understand that. Investments take time. And it's when people want too much too soon by doing too little and having too little that they give up, right? I mean, if you're always coming up short and you're investing time and thought, you decide, hey, I'll save the time and thought for me. And then some people believe that they've already peaked, and now they're on the other side of it. So that's why groups are so important, right? Because you'll listen to somebody else in a way you won't listen to yourself. Because to Catherine's point, if 90% of your thoughts are the same ones, what did those thoughts do for you that day that you got to keep revisiting them every day into the future? So before we swing it back to Leslie, Paul has what a fascinating achievement yesterday. Out of reverence, Grandpa. Love the show with Bob Burke. He was so insightful and helped clear up a lot for me. Well, he is a professional, and he's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and it's great that
Just like the two bookends here.
yeah, or the same.
He is not any smarter than Catherine and I.
Leslie, you're just a slice of bread right now. So anyway, let's not get into. And if you ask me, I think more peanut butter and jelly would be better than when I'm with too sweet.
Sage. Well, I think sage.
Okay, Leslie. So here we go back to Elizabeth. Catherine reminded me of Louise Hay. That's true. I believe that, and Louise was such a positive influence on the way to look at things. I know she related illnesses to certain things, and so it was very fascinating. Thank you, Elizabeth. Natalie comes back with funny. I can't imagine either of you smoking.
Right.
Neither can I now. And I quit way early. I quit in my early 20s, and I was never a big smoker. I mean, I knew people would just smoke. I mean, they never stop smoking. They wake up smoking. They go to sleep smoking. It was awful. And they're not around probably today. Elizabeth, yes, our planes still have ashtrays. Good morning, everyone. Happy weekend. Beverly's here. Beverly's our Tuesday wonderful person. Perfectly said, Leslie Flower. As soon as you've hit that space where something is missing, there must be more. It's time to change. Dennis, our poet laureate. I lucked out when I was 13 years old. I had my first 3 cigarettes outside of my schoolyard, and I got sick. I was lucky to not get addicted to that bad habit and have healthier habits like working out. I worked out to reinvent myself. And that's great. And you know what that reflects? Sometimes you got to fall off your horse to realize that wasn't the right horse anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Or, and I think, an obstacle is also a way to pause. Leslie must have found something funny. Thank you for that, Catherine Chadwick. We have so many thoughts and a negative feedback loop that keeps you there, but you can rewire with positive thinking, and that helps you keep moving forward. Finally up here is Dennis, which says, or simply butter up and you will be well.
That's what I was laughing at.
Well, see, triple validation, Dennis. Getting back to you, Leslie, on a most positive note.
Oh, always. Well, let's see. Okay, back to reinvention. What do I want to say about that? I really kind of ran out of stuff.
It's okay,
right?
Catherine.
Yeah, it's okay. Now just get the hook.
It's okay. She ran out of stuff. So
ran out of stuff to say. I've been laughing.
Well, but even that is a reinvention. When you get the hook, right? That's even a reinvention because it's onto something else. So.
Still on the stage, though. In the old days, when you got the hook, you were off into the curtain somewhere.
I know, but it's fascinating talking about getting the hook. We are the director of our own experience, but we play all the parts. We're the actor, we're the writer, we're the director, we're the producer. And we have choices to make adjustments in all of those arenas. And what the other fascinating thing is that because new information is coming to us constantly, if we're not making those little course corrections as we go, then we are stagnating. And what's with that? And so the curiosity factor is huge, right? It's what I refer to as a curious observer. It's like, okay, look at yourself from the outside, and you get a ton of information that way. And I love the curious observer because it takes the judgment out of it. We don't have to beat ourselves up just because we didn't, hit that milestone in the amount of time that we had anticipated. But to your point, Don, things do take time and things have cycles, and we're not necessarily aware of all of the cycles that are always in play all the time. Right. And so it's fascinating to understand more about the energy principles and those universal laws and how they operate and how we can operate within that, how we do operate within that, whether we choose to consciously do it or not. Right. And so I think that that is an important thing to be aware of. And I do get, thank you for the mention of Louise Hay, Elizabeth, because I get that quite frequently. And because I do, work in the medical arena and I study in the medical arena, it is fascinating how many people do kind of connect me with that. And the research in that arena is fascinating too, because the research shows that over 90% of health conditions and illnesses are lifestyle induced. And with the blossoming of the technology and the research, the study of epigenetics is fascinating because, it used to be thought of that many conditions were predetermined, genetically. But it's actually, we signal the genes by our reaction to our environment. And it's, that whole concept is very foreign to people. And so you're probably getting back, Leslie, to the 2% or the 3% of the people that actually absorb this information and think about it and how can I use it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Louise Hay. Well, so first of all, we were born perfect and the ability to with the ability to heal ourselves. You only have to look and see people that have been burned at 90% of their body and they come back, they can't walk, right? So we actually have more control than we know. One of the things that we talked about just a little while ago was, and then you brought this up, Catherine, was about you really don't have to know everything to consider a concept. And one of the things that I do when I teach is I teach at the fourth grade level, unless I know the audience, right? Typically, I will articulate at that age level because I'm making the assumption that what the people need to hear first are the basics, right? And then that can inspire and ignite. Now, when you and I are talking, or you and I and Dawn are talking, we're talking on a completely different level with different words and different sentences. And so the context is decisive. It's vital that we are able to recognize the context that we're in when we're sharing, right? And I get pretty silly on these shows because I like to play and I like plays on words. I've been around a long time, all of us have, and we know things. So probably the biggest lesson I've learned in the last decade is that just because I don't know yet how something works doesn't mean it's not working.
Right.
That was illuminating. So I didn't have to be skeptical. Like I don't have to know, to your point, Catherine, all the intricacies to get curious and begin to investigate. It all starts with what we think. Honestly, we control nothing other than what we think. We can influence with our thinking. We can create new beliefs through repetition, the first law of learning. That's how we learned our multiplication tables. That's how we got our crappy beliefs. And all we need do is take a look and distinguish, well, how did I get that belief? What was the process? And that's actually my work. Then it's replicated in a positive way because all those negative beliefs and automatic reactions, which are low vibration, will cause disease. Right? You make yourself sick through what you think repeatedly in so many cases.
Okay. Going on getting sick. I'll move forward.
You can heal yourself as equally as well.
No kidding, because, again, you choose to be in certain states,
Mhm.
especially once you become aware of that,
Mhm.
right? When you find yourself clenching, when you find yourself not breathing as well as you should, or, you need to understand that and move away from it. I think to Catherine's point, if you're going to design your play and create your script, what really matters is who's your audience.
Mhm.
Because who is going to support you? Who is there for you? So, when you try to reinvent yourself, sometimes you got to try on new costumes. Sometimes you got to write new lines, and who is going to be telling you when you come out with your new costume, hey, this is perfect, or maybe you do this or whatever. And now you're part of a team. When you're part of a team, when you take a hit, and that's what insurance companies do, is they combine and aggregate, and that's the way they can handle losses, is you're only 1/5 of the hit if you're only 1/5 of the team. And then the other four have to respond to what just happened. And pretty soon you get a consensus. Well, this is what we just experienced, right? And whatever the case, what you want is resolution to reinvention. You want it to stick, right? You don't want to add a stone to the puzzle and then see it fall off with another stone the next day and you're going up a down escalator. And you got to have fun. Fun should come first, because, it's like when you work for yourself. Most cases, people, they're first to pay and the last to get paid, right? Everything's got to get taken care of. What's left is yours. In most cases, they pay yourself first, because that way you'll guarantee you'll have that money for rent, right? The first 10% or 15%. So if you look at this other element, it's an investment account in yourself, because you need to be stronger. You need to be better, because just because of time and gravity, you're going to be working against more and more resistance in time, or less strength. So why not be more strategic with your energy, with your thoughts, and really with your accomplishment? And I think that's where gratitude, journaling, at the end of the day, adding up your pluses and minuses. Most people take the pluses for granted. It's the minuses they remember. In retail, when I had my stores, it was always that irate customer that upset everybody at the counter. I could have had 100 great customers, but anybody talked about that person who started yelling or wanted something that they didn't deserve. But anyways, before we move on to Catherine, we've got, where did I stop? Okay, here's a big one. Natalie said, I love what you're saying about emotions. I've been saying for years that I paint my emotions with more. Recently, I'm able to be in a place of flow. I start every day with painting 1 or 2 watercolors. I stay in the flow for many hours, because and so, right. I mean, I've been doing this for 400 days every day. And if you make it part of your everyday routine, and it isn't routine because it is new people, new thoughts, new ideas, and it is taking yesterday's information, carrying it over tomorrow. Everybody that comes here leaves something. Bob Berg leaves something, Leslie leaves something, Catherine, and there's more than something, but there's obvious somethings. If one just wrote down every idea, every suggestion, and maybe on this show, maybe 30, that's a lot to choose from. Do that every day with new people, new perspectives, and people helping people help each other. That's what's important. Betty's here. Never seen a Betty before, but glad to have you. Dennis comes back with agree, understand energy better, and we're energetic. So true. Elizabeth agreed, teach at a pace. Beverly says, actually, live at a pace is really important. Thank you, Catherine Chad. We can change our biology through how we think wise words. And a lot of this is confirming and validating for people who are thinking this way. So not everything is revolutionary. Not everything is changing from one way to the other. It's to Catherine's point, 1 degree change over time is significant. And everybody can change 1%, 1/100th. Can you add a half a second to 2 minutes to make something happen? That's 1%. Energy follows awareness. Starting our day with meditation, I believe, sets the stage for great reinvention. And you got to go out of your way to get ready for a day. You don't just fall out of bed and go to it. You know, I mean, there's something to getting up and getting ready. Keep playing, Leslie Flowers. Kids in the Sandbox are always reinventing.
Yeah.
I'll join you in the sandbox. Well, this is what this is actually, you know, in a lot of ways, because we don't know what we're going to say next. And it could be just what someone just said or we just read. Being illuminating as a bulb and a bright move. Betty, gotta find out your last name. Thank you for that with a teddy bear. Dean is here. Wow, I haven't seen Dean in a while. Dean's just flourishing. I know you're down in Louisiana now with your daughter. Last time I read, so glad to see you. Hope everything continues to do well for you. Dennis, one bad customer that can be counterintuitive. Yeah, but you know, once you know something, now you're the issue, right? Something happens for the first time, it's a surprise. You have no idea. If it happens like every day, it can't be a surprise anymore. It's a thing that happens every day now. And now it's up to you to decide how much influence do you have on it to change it. And if you find out you don't, it isn't part of your universe, right? It is the universe. So I think when people focus on how they relate to others instead of how others relate to them. If someone else is going to be responsible for your happiness, you're rolling the dice every day. When you can fix the game in your favor, right? When you can go out of your way to give yourself an unfair advantage, right? By enjoying things people aren't aware of, by finding value in things people that overlook. You know, picking up those little nuggets, those facets, that's nuance. And, you know, living a life of curiosity will allow you to reinvent yourself because you always wonder, why not? How come I'm not doing that? Well, at least give it a try. How many people take classes in their 90s? And people could say, what are you going to use this for? You know, there was a saying of a man who was planting a tree who was 90. And a young kid comes by and says, hey, old man, what are you planting a tree? You'll never see it, you know? And the old man says, you got two ways to live. One is like you're going to live forever. And the other one is you're going to die today. And I prefer to take the live forever plan. So Leslie got a smile on her face, got everything adjusted now at 47.
I got a nugget. That came to me. So I'm really going to be curious about what the audience thinks and what Catherine thinks. And not so much about what you think, Donald, but because I know you're always thinking.
I know you don't care.
So here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The mechanism for reinvention is visualization. Everything is created twice. First, in the image in our mind of what it is we want. As soon as we create that visualization, every image has an emotion that's attached to it. When you create that, that's thought energy. Immediately, the potential for manifestation is also created and begins moving toward us at the same vibration we're moving toward it. So if you want to know how to reinvent yourself every day, then visualize on the screen of your mind, which is about 20 degrees when your eyes are closed above eye level, because that image has the trapped emotions or vibration that you want. And then every time you think about or bring up that visualization, along with it comes the vibration, and that vibration is the DNA of manifestation. But the thing is you can reinvent yourself through visualizing the different way you want to be.
I think that's very important. And before I turn over to Catherine, I mean, in my own case, like tonight, my 11-year-old grandson's sleeping over. So it's usually every week. So just visualizing that changes everything I'm thinking about today. Is like, what are we going to get for dinner? What does he want? What is this? What is that? Right? And all of a sudden, everything else is just passing by as I'm driving towards tonight. So if you have, and it's been proven, people who have given 90 days to live, if they've got a daughter that's going to get married in 7 months, somehow miraculously they get there.
Yep.
There's that event that says, I'm not missing this thing. And, so Catherine, why don't you add that?
Well, it's so funny because before you started talking, Leslie, I had written down invest in visualization, right?
And I've been taking notes too, and that was the one that came up for me because I ran out. I got kind of empty.
Well, because in order to reinvent ourselves, we actually develop a new personality. I mean, we're really not the person that we were last year or even last week, right? Because we're always evolving. If we're truly evolving, if we're allowing ourselves the expansion of the natural energy, right? And the visualization, and absolutely attached with the emotion, because the emotion is the carrier, right? I mean, right. Because if you just visualize something, but don't attach the emotion with it,
Well, I don't know. Do you actually even have a choice? Because if you visualize something negative, you're going to have a negative emotion. If you visualize something positive, like Donald, preparing for that evening, isn't it? I mean, like, aren't they connected? Like, isn't that maybe part of the visualization? Is that the other part of it is the emotion? Is that possible, do you think?
Oh, well, I absolutely think that they are connected, but it's also interesting, let's say, that there are some folks that are kind of shut down emotionally. So, they can get to the part of start to be curious, start to visualize, but if they don't attach something to it,
Yeah.
right, it's only part of the equation, right? And so understanding that the emotion is actually the carrier.
Yes.
I mean, and talk about having fun in the sandbox. Yeah, let's do that, right?
Well, and I think that, I look at this show every day and I look at all the people who come on. And actually, last night I looked at my calendar that things really started to pick up in January. So it's been about 10 months. First 2 months was like getting my feet wet. But what I found is reinvention is allowing other people to help you reinvent yourself by their influence. So, I mean, in a way, the three of us together are polishing wheels for each other, right? We're giving each other new ideas. We're challenging each other to be spontaneous in our answers, to be in the moment, to share the best we have with a short period of time to think and respond. And then when you blend in 30, 40 people in the audience with their comments, and now that also gives you feedback and gives you an idea of what people are looking for, what's popular. I think that is so huge. So let me just finish. Betty comes back with, not all of us have good elders around. Some of us have elders around trying to keep our eyes shut and mute. Grateful to have crossed paths with you all, lovely lads. Well, thank you. What a lovely story, Don. You're well.
Ladies.
What's that? Lady? Yeah.
Ladies.
Well, I said lads.
You read what was there.
Just read what it is, not what it might be. What a lovely story, Don. You're a wealth of these wonderful parables. Yeah, that is kind of funny, and I love parables. Evolution is the solution to a great life with less strife. Well, you know what I want everybody to understand and appreciate? Any little thing is something. And anything you do that improves you is a win. Mm-hmm. And you have to acknowledge that, because a lot of times you're not going to get to the end of the journey without some stops along the way, without some pivots, without some challenges and surprises, right? So I think that's so important, to give yourself some grace and some thoughtfulness, and applaud yourself for trying at least. It's not the result. It's like, well, I always tell kids, don't listen to anybody else isn't doing what you're doing, right? Because at least you're doing it, right? So if you play basketball, you're not that good, and someone has a problem, are they playing basketball? Are they out there on the court? So just starting, just making a move, because a lot of people, to Catherine's point and Leslie's point, have hesitation. They have fear. They have doubt. We all do.
Hey, yeah.
And if everybody says you got nothing to lose, don't worry about it. And enough of those people say, hey, I'll go first even. Let me taste it. Let me show you how good it is. Remember, you're serving food nobody wants to eat because they don't even know what it is. They've never tried it, And you say, well, let me show you, I'll eat it. Right? So it's not poison. So I think that's really taking the lead for other people to say, I've done it. Like this show, how many people came on for the first time, and between what they thought going in to what they thought coming out,
Mm-hmm.
it opened up a new horizon because now I can do this, right? And once I know I can do it, there's no fear I can have, right? Because once you know, you know. So anyways, almost closing up.
I got something.
Okay, hurry
I
up.
wanted to ask to what Catherine was talking about. You reminded me, for those people who have challenges with applying the emotion required to the visualization, let's say it that way, if you will, it reminds me of this interesting discipline called heart math, right? And I know you know what it is. And here's what when someone runs into this problem, this is what I recommend they do. Right. And I learned this from, doing a heart math, a couple of exercises with a facilitator. Is what I can do is go back into one of my memories, which is 100% retrievable, and bring that up. So, for example, when I was in high school, I had this boyfriend, or this guy that I was crazy in love with. His name was Peter Orr. He had red hair and green eyes. And oh my God, I had the biggest crush on him, but I never talked to him. But I can tell you that with my back to the door in the schoolroom, I knew when he was coming in. I even saw his face in Mom's mashed potatoes. I was so crazy in crush love with this guy. And I can resurrect that titillation, that feeling in a moment, because that's secure. So if I'm thinking about the visualization and I can't resurrect the emotion required, the juice, as Catherine is pointing out, I will purposely go into my memory, bring up this guy's name was Peter Orr. Oh my God. Anyway, and look at Donald. Oh, his name was Donald Cohen, and he never knew it. He never even knew it. He paid no attention. But the thing is
I said anyway.
Then what you do is, as soon as you bring that up, then you switch the visual image, because you only hold one at a time, back to that thing that you want. And you now have actually transmuted, that's a big word, the energy and moved it into this visualization. Now, you may not understand how that works, but don't worry about it. It works. You'll know one day. Trust me, this works. So it's to your point, Catherine, you're right. There are times, and there was a time for me where I was deplete of that emotion. I didn't know how to attach it. Now I can do this if I run into that snag. So do you know about heart math?
Oh, absolutely. The heart-brain coherence is fabulous, right? When you learn about that too, and you can incorporate that in how you think about things. Because it turns out that the heart actually communicates more frequently with the brain than the brain does with the heart, right? Which is fascinating, right? So it's like, okay, there's a lot more than a Hallmark card going on in there.
Well, yeah, and if you look at horses, right, they have a huge heart. And if you learn just a little bit about herd mentality, horses can sense your energy at a greater distance than we can,
Right.
based on the relative size of their heart. So yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I know enough to ask questions and be dangerous.
Well, don't we all, actually, right? And to your point about the visualization, it's important, I believe, that people understand that repetition is important.
That's the first law of learning, and that is a principle of success from Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the 13 principles, and it's clear.
Yeah.
That's how you build a habit, good, bad, or indifferent. It's
Right.
through thinking the same thing in spaced, repetitive intervals over time. So when we have a negative thought, if we don't let it go in the 90 seconds, as Catherine is letting us know, that we actually, it will dissipate on its own if you will stop thinking about it. If you continue, then you begin to develop a habit and a belief that that is true. And it is true for you, but you did it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the continuing doing of it makes the most sense because once it becomes a habit, it's hard to break. See, it's hard to form initially because you're leaving a habit and replacing it with a new activity, a new thought. In addition to that, to what Leslie and Catherine are saying, if you want to assist visualization, identify and relate to something that's relatable to that visualization. And to give you an example, there's certain music I hear, right? And when I hear the music, I remember when I heard it, who I was with.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know,
That's another way.
that's right. So you don't get the visualization until you put the fuel in.
That's right. That's the DNA. And music is one of the top vibrations. So as you go up the ladder, actually, sexual energy is the highest vibration. Then there's love, there's generosity. So the idea here is when you're thinking about things driving down the road, what are you thinking about? What could you be thinking about? What choice will you make? There's a place where I live, at the intersection at the end of a big bypass, where there are always hungry people right there. You've seen them, the people standing there with the placard. I always have a few dollars for them, and I purposely get in the left lane. There are three. So I could be the one who gets in the middle lane or the right lane so I don't have to deal with it. I love doing this. I love giving them $2 or $3. Right. I don't care about anything else other than it makes me feel so good and I know it helps them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I get in that first lane because gratitude and generosity are part of those high vibrations.
Right.
So, right, Catherine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
Donald?
Yeah, well, I think not everything, but certain things can free you up to do certain things. So
Yeah.
maybe by giving and serving,
Mhm.
now your mind shifted more into at least neutral. And now you're in a better position to visualize because the last visualization you want to have is the one last 3 seconds. And then all of a sudden a bell rings, something else happens where music, you didn't even know, but all of a sudden you hear it and you remember a situation. Usually it's something that was happy, right? I mean, you danced to it, you were on a date with somebody, and that's all that was playing. You were at a family occasion, whatever. It shows you don't have to, you have to be in the now to remember the past and also to visualize the future, right?
We are so powerful. We are the source of all of our results. We actually make ourselves sick. We have the ability to heal ourselves completely. We're the optimum. We are really godlike. If you think about it, we're the only living being on the planet that I'm aware of that can take an idea and through the vibration, which is cellular, by the way, and repetition, we can actually manifest it in a different energetic form. It started as thought energy, an idea. We held it. We got excited about it. We kept our vibration high, the juice, the DNA for manifestation. We start to attract to us that second iteration, that actual physical formation of the original visualization, and it's on its way to us. And so we are really godlike. No other living being can do this except that the crow can actually make tools. But other than that, I don't know of any other living being that can transmute radiant energy into physical form.
Well, I think just people saying that that can happen will allow people to believe it could happen to them.
Mhm.
And then it might happen. But, that's what reinvention is. Try, see what you got out of it, try again another way. You keep, if you try to open a top one way, it's not working, you start looking for another way, right? You don't keep doing the same thing because
Thomas Edison had 10,000 tries for the
oh, I know.
incandescent bulb. Come on.
Yeah, but
Right?
that's right. And you know what? He had enough belief that he would get it done, that this was just something in the way, right? This wasn't like, okay, dump that idea. And eventually you learn how to learn. And then when you ultimately learn the right way, then everything, his inventions, everything else didn't take 10,000 attempts. So in other words, you not only get the primary benefit of what you're doing and thinking, you get the results of what you did and how you did it. So now you can apply it to the next thing. So I know we're running over. Catherine, final thoughts on the show, Reinvention?
Well, it is fabulous because we are sexual energy. We're universal energy. And, when you think about it, we don't breathe ourselves. We don't make our hearts beat on our own. So let's learn to work with this energy that we are, right? And that's just a beautiful thing when you think about it. And because what was it that you had said that I wanted to be sure? Oh, we're a part of nature, and there are cycles, right? And so it may not come to you as quickly as you think, as quickly as you want it to, but it's believing that it's already done, already in motion, and it's getting to that vibration where you're a match.
Yes.
I describe it to people as a little bit like, that game of Go Fish. You may not get the match right away, but there's a match, right?
You have faith.
Yes.
And faith is knowing that you know that you know. And the more times that you test these things and you actually see them working, you're building faith. And especially when you do things that you haven't done before and you did them well and you continue to do them, you have faith in your ability. Because a lot of times we don't think we're capable based on what we know, but anytime you go to do something that's really out of your comfort zone and you're compelled to do it for whatever reason, right? Then when you're done, you go, oh my God, not only did I do that, but I did a really good job. That's building faith in your own ability and your connection with the universe, that you have a partner, that we are part of the universe and we are godlike. We were given the keys to the kingdom, and learning is the miracle grow. So never stop learning.
Everything was so profound today
I know.
and worthwhile. I mean, it is one of my best hours of every day because I get to do this every day with people who are learning, growing, changing, wanting more, doing more, being more. And if you cycle that over and over against you, right, it's like blending. You can't help but get parts of everybody else, and parts of you go out to everybody else. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that knowing it's going to happen, and then the time it takes doesn't mean as much. I mean, if someone sent you a post-dated check that you knew was good, you would just start counting the days off, but you'd be thinking about, okay, how I'm going to use this money. What am I,
Oh, and then it's never enough. Like whenever I do that, I mean, I don't care what it is. It's just I've spent it in 30 seconds in my mind. And
yeah, but
$1,000.
that's not being evolved.
Oh.
You can do it, but it's not something. Well, and the last thing I'll say, and it is the weekend, so I don't mind going a little bit over, is your words are words that you hear when you say them also. Right?
Very interesting.
And anything you say negative for any reason, you reinforce, especially if it was your negative that you mentioned to people.
Mm-hmm.
and it's also your negative that carries forward. So it's a matter of distilling and curating,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like purity. If you wanted to give somebody a supplement, you would make sure it's the purest, healthiest supplement you can do. You wouldn't put some stuff on it and not worry about what it is. And, and a lot of people say, well, you're not allowing for the bad. You're not, but there is no balance in bad with good. There's only dilution. There's only distraction. There's only like a backhanded compliment. I love your hair, but once someone says but, you might as well forget about everything before it, right? Because
So Donald, tell us how you reinvented for your grandson's soccer game. What kind of goodies did you get? Right? What was planned for dinner? Tell us how you reinvented, yourself and your focus on your grandson and his
that's a
soccer.
good question. Well, Anne is like the best grandmother in the world, so she can't say no or refuse anything. I mean, whatever it is, they're
Me
going to
too.
because of the few opportunities. As you learn as they get older, they get more independent, and they're not doing sleepovers, and they're not watching movies with popcorn with you, right? So, it's like the Four Seasons Hotel. When someone comes in, it's like both of us is, what can we do to make your stay better? Also, they're going to report back, to the home front.
Yeah.
So, and most of what can an 11-year-old kid ever ask or want that you can't supply? They're not looking for Ferraris. Usually it's just more mac and cheese or whatever.
And it's joyful, isn't it? Like this, thinking about, in the future, right? Thinking about something a few hours in advance, it spikes your vibration and it holds it longer, right? Because you're really spending a good part of your day pretty well focused on his visit or his game or whatever you're going to do. And that's a trick to maintain that high vibration.
Yeah, but he's 11 and he's been getting this treatment since he was born.
You'll never stop doing it.
No, so he has an expectation of high quality service. But what it also has taught him is to return the favor with being polite, being respectful, going out of his way to get something for you. If you drop something, he'll run and pick it up for you. So what you put out there is what people receive and then give back to you with whatever they have with it. And I think, to close out, as you get older, you're happy to live vicariously through others, right? I would prefer to have him all the joy of an ice cream than me, right? Or things I've done so many times and something new gets somebody excited, right? It's like, hey, you see it, it's yours. If it's on my plate, it can be on your plate really quickly. And it's fun for you because then you can measure yourself as how did I do today? We should almost have like report cards when he leaves, to fill out the 5 diamonds of service that we provided. But yeah, to me, that's my day. And if I have that every week, no matter what happens during the week, I have something to look forward to on the weekends that I know is going to be perfect. And that's
besides us.
You both would get 5-star treatment too. It's just a location that allows my grandson to get it more often. But with that said, we're talking like we're not in front of people. Want to close it up. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow we've got Sarah Dawkins, been here since January. Wonderful lady. Continue the conversation. Reinvent yourself. Reach out to Catherine and Leslie if you have something to share on reinvention, or just come back on the show and tell us how it worked out. Want to hear, want to help. With that said, thank you.